because every time I go on there, I'm like, I'm not gonna buy anything, and then I spend like a couple $100. Like, oh yeah, no. Wait, is that a Roman maid? Oh, I need that. Click.
Oh man, and I got like a collection of like different stuff here, and like a lot of people that I've interacted with on Underground are super cool. Like I've never had a bad deal on there so far. Knock on wood.
Yeah, it seems like there's a couple people, but I think like the nice part about the community is like if someone burns someone in the community, they're pretty vocal about it, and they're like, "Hey, don't deal with this dude." So anybody who like messes one person up is pretty much like sussed out pretty much immediately, and you don't have to worry about it too much. So it seems like by and large the community's pretty good.
Yeah, like I only had one interaction, like weird interaction with the dude. So like I had an old Bantam Corrado, and this guy was like, "Oh, I'll trade you like this weird thing for it, like a wake, or it's like a wake walker, but it was like kind of looked weird." And then like he's like, "Oh, never mind." It was just kind of weird. And then other people had like on his feedback were like, "Oh, I've had weird interactions with this dude too."
So it's probably just like some sketchy guy trying to like send you or like get you to send him something nice for a knockoff or something.
No kidding, cause like the Wake Walker looked weird.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, it like very obviously like it was a Wake Walker, but like the tail was different. Like if he put a new tail in it or whatever, and I don't know, it just wasn't in a paint scheme that I wanted.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know,
weird.
but
Like I find a lot of Jesus Christ, that took fucking forever. Speaking of Wake Walkers and stuff, I'm trying to get. I like picked up this mess of braid and it found its way into the back of my car and has caught my flea shed. Hey,
hey.
hey, hey. Expecting? What do you want from me? Oh, what do you want from me? Oh,
Well,
very nice. It's Modelo time.
yeah, dude, in the rainbow trout koozie.
Dude, that's sick.
Hell
Does
yeah,
it have a
man.
little lure in its mouth too?
Yeah, it has like a little fly in its mouth.
That's dope. Where'd you get that?
Okay, so like there's historical fish hatcheries, and one of the historical fish hatcheries is like in the next town over, and they have just like monster trout that they have on display, and then they have like their other trout that they have in runs that they stock in different areas around the state. And in their gift shop they have like these koozies, they have fish flops, uh
Fish
cup.
flops. Dude, I have a pair of fish flops. My friend got me a pair for Christmas this year.
That's epic. I don't know, dude. I'm not expecting like a ton out of this. Just like a conversation. We can talk about fishing and whatever else pops up. It doesn't strictly have to be fishing. Um, I know maybe send some out there reels to each other over Instagram.
Yeah, we can try and keep it semi PG, PG 13 esque, we'll say.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Some of those reels are a little bit out there, a
a
little
little
bit,
outlandish, yeah.
inappropriate at times.
It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. It's all comedy.
You can't take anything too seriously.
Yeah, especially not nowadays.
So like, yeah, like when I first interacted with you, I was actually going to go to Colorado, and I was like looking at different people in the Denver area, and you popped up because I was like, "Oh, like maybe I can go fish with this guy." And then just never came to fruition cuz you were moving at that time. But
Yeah.
like, so you're originally from New York then?
Yeah. So I lived in New York pretty much my whole life. I just went to school out in Colorado at Colorado State University. Let's go Rams. Represent. But yeah, I are do we want to record and start this or?
We're already going, man.
Oh, we're going. Oh Jesus, I didn't even realize that. All right, yeah.
I should have prepared you. I'm sorry. I just wanted it to flow organically into it.
It's fine. No, I was taken aback. I was like, man, we're talking about such good stuff. We got some witty banter going this pod, but we're on the pod already. All right, welcome. What's up, pod? Anyway, yeah. So I'm from New York originally, from Long Island, just outside the city. I've been fishing, been loving. I love fish. my one true love my whole life is just fish. Whether it's catching them, learning about them, keeping them. I've had fish tanks. I've bred fish for like a side hustle. I've cooked fish. I don't really eat fish all that much, but I love cooking fish. Like just really anything to do with fish and fishing. I've always been an avid outdoorsman. And then, going to college, I wanted to find somewhere that I could be outdoors and pursue that goal and that love of fish and fishing and all that stuff. And so Colorado State has like a great fisheries wildlife conservation bio program. So that's kind of what drew me there. And then, obviously snowboarding, trophy trout fisheries, and then obviously that led into bass fishing. And here we are, 5, 6 years later, finally graduated, finally got a degree, moved back to New York, and still catching little fish, still struggling to catch a big one, and here we are.
Okay, but like in your fairly recent trip to Florida, you caught your PB.
I did indeed, yeah. So that was last May. That was, Jesus Christ. I know everybody says this when they go down to Florida. They're like, oh, dude, if I caught this fish during the spawn, it would be a double dip. I honestly, like, that fish was probably 25 inches long. Like, it was just, like, paper thin. But yeah, 6.67, I believe, was what it weighed out at. So 6.5 pounder, but super long, super fat head on that thing. It was a fun trip overall. I didn't even go down there really to fish. I just went down to go visit my grandparents that live down there. And they just happened to have a pond in their little retirement community. And I was like, I'm going to go fish that. And happened to catch personal best out of it. So that was pretty sweet. Saw some gators down there. I love Florida. I don't go down there all too often. I think that was the first time I've been there in 8 years or 9 years or something. But I wish I spent more time down there, man. You were actually down in Florida. You spent a lot of time down there yourself, right?
Yeah, so like me and my girlfriend, we lived in Florida for 2 years, like in the central Florida area. And we were around a lot of good fishing actually, but just like, dude, working all the time. Didn't have a ton of time to work, but Florida bass are just like, because coming from the Midwest, coming from South Dakota, and having northern strain, and then going down to Florida and like seeing Florida strain bass, they're just built different. Because like a good healthy like northern bass will be a football versus like these Florida strain bass. Like they can get really fat, if they have like a good healthy environment to grow in, but they just get long and like super fat heads on them.
Yeah, they're just long, skinny, mean. I think again, like they have their very specific situations where they get real fat. Like around the spawn, pre-spawn, there'll be some big fish. But most of the time of the year, they're just like, I think it's their metabolism super high because of the high water temperature, and they just burn all of the food that they eat constantly. So they just like, no matter how much they could possibly eat, they're just big fish. They burn a lot of calories moving around and just being alive and stuff. And so they can't keep that weight on, unfortunately. Must be nice, honestly. I wish.
Man, and like in different parts of Florida, so like some of the bass that like I caught in Florida, like they were healthy, like they're like had like bellies on them, but I know in like more of the southern parts where they have a lot more competition, like snakeheads and peacock bass, it just like you see people like catching them and they're just paper thin, like you're saying, and just huge heads on them. So they can like fit anything in their mouth. They just like have competition.
Yeah, there's nothing for them to put in their mouth, really. There's a lot of stuff that eats all the same stuff, like all the cichlids, all the peacock bass, like you said, the snakehead. Like it's a competitive, especially like the last 50, 60 years as people have like been, releasing more and more of these invasive species down there. Like it just gets more and more competitive as they take hold and reproduce and do their whole thing. But it's a cool place though. It's a really cool, interesting like fishery, really interesting state as well. Just like the whole wildlife, natural, how like biggest cities are like right butted up to like the Everglades. It's always nuts to me how there's like that duality so close to each other.
Yeah, and like so like some of the YouTubers that you'll watch, like John B or like Marshall, like just fished in Disneyland like not too long ago when he was down in Florida, the homeless fisherman, if you will. And dude, like instead of fishing in Disney, like right next to Disney is a town called Celebration. And I had fished there a couple of times. There's some good fish in there. And like there's a lot going on because it's all touristy, and so there's people walking by doing stuff. There's like a bunch of shops downtown. Uh, there's McLarens driving down the street. Like, dude, it's just wild.
Or
It's the coolest place to go and fish. Like, that was one of my favorite places. And like,
it's yeah.
yeah, like, and people are cool too when you're fishing there. Like, there's this old guy. He's like, I caught like a little bass. And he's like, oh, what you using for bait? Oh, worm. That's good bait. Like, using like one of those Zoom like cutter tail worms.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
it's always. I feel like, especially like people who live in. I find it especially like out here as well. Like if you get out to like a lot of those beachy towns, anyone who lives close to the beach, like they're cool people. They're just
Hmm.
very chill, very like they don't have any worries. And I feel like the entire state of Florida is like that. They're just like they're all by the beach, and unless it's hurricane season, they just have nothing to worry about.
Man, that's what I miss the most about being down in Florida. So like one the fishing, but I didn't get to like fish a ton while I was down there. But like just going to the beach, man, just it's a whole different vibe.
It's great, yeah. It's one of the things that I love living about like on Long Island is like I'm close to upstate, I'm close to the city, and I'm close to the beach as well, so I can just kind of do anything. If I want to go surf fishing, I can do that. Hang out at the beach all day, go out to the boardwalk. If I want to go up to the mountains, I can go up there, go do some trout fishing, go fish for smallmouth, pike, stuff like that. You can go out to the city, you can do urban fishing. It's a crazy spot. Like no matter what you want to do around here, and like not even so much the fishing aspect, like even if you want to like go do hiking or go do mountain biking or something, like New York is like it's one of those places where it's a whole lot more. I think I feel like everywhere is kind of like that, where there's a lot more to it than you realize. I'm sure South Dakota is the same way. I'm
Hmm.
sure people are like, oh yeah, South Dakota, man. Like yeah, it's just one of those states that's like out there, and it's endless fields of crops and stuff, and not all that much to see. But like I'm sure I've seen some of your videos of some absolutely gorgeous like little trout blah, 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 trout ponds, little like honey holes and stuff up in the mountains and stuff. I'm like, it's beautiful out there,
Hmm.
and it's like it's so cool. Like a lot of people don't notice or don't recognize
Hmm.
things.
Ooh, let's go back to surf fishing because when I was down in Florida, my only catch while surf fishing was like a little conch kind of a thing that
It's
just
like
like
a shell.
yeah, dude, and it had like the living organism in it, but it was like a shell,
So
and the
funny.
thing was just wrapped around my shrimp, like melting or eating it or whatever. It was so weird because I was like, my line's like heavy. There's something
Yeah.
on here.
And at first, what you think it was like a rock or something? You're like, how could I possibly catch a piece of coral?
Dude, well, like, yeah, I was like, what is it? I was like, did I just like snag a shell and then like it's like coming out, and so like I tossed it back. I was like, that's one of the weirdest catches I've ever had.
It's a little gross. It's kind of cool though. Yeah, I don't do. I wish I gotta get out and do some more saltwater fishing. Honestly, man, I've just been so like bass focused, especially being out in like in Colorado. Like, it's all freshwater, and then all of the trout spots are all so overfished because everybody knows Colorado trout fishing. That's what people go there for. So
Hmm.
it's like if you want to go fishing and you don't want to be like bumping rods with someone else, like you got to go to like fish a farm pond or fish like a little retention pond or like a little like side of the road ditch or something like that in Colorado and just like fish for bass. So that's just what I've been so focused on. But dude, like I'm this year, I'm definitely getting out and doing some more saltwater fishing. I want to get out and do a bunch of. There's like some good striper fishing on the North Shore of Long Island. From what I hear, when the tide comes in, we get these little fish called bunker that are about yay big,
Hmm.
about like 5 or 6 inches. They run in schools of like several thousand, and you just see them like running in balls like all the way along the surface. And the striper will come in and follow and just crush them. And I think the world record striper was caught just south of me in New Jersey.
Hmm.
But same kind of general area, like in the same like South Shore, Long Island, New Jersey area. I think that was within the last 5 or 6 years. I saw was like almost 70 pound striper, which is insane.
Dude,
So
that's huge.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, like the slot limit out here is like a 22 pound fish or something like that. So like that's like an average fish. You go out and catch like 10 or 12 18 to 22 pound fish, and that's your day. That's just a normal day of striper fishing out here. If you know what you're doing, I don't
Hmm.
know what I'm doing, and I'd like to know. And so that's one of the goals is to hopefully get better at it. But yeah, surf fishing is super fun as well. We have a lot of like actually big sharks and stuff that come in pretty close to the bank or pretty close to the shore, and shark fishing from the bank is that's a fun time. It's a little sketchy, but it's a fun time, especially if you're doing it around people, because like people freak out if they see a shark.
Hmm.
We used to actually on the North Shore. We used to go out and there's or no, actually I guess it is the South Shore, but there's this little fishing area called Captree. It's a state park that's out east, and we used to go out there and you could go catch like little sand sharks, little nurse sharks, stuff like that. And they don't have any like teeth or anything, but they have like these little grinding plates. And every once in a while we'd catch them, and like you catch a shark, and if there's any kids in the area, like you're like, oh shark, shark, and the kids come running over and freaking out. And I remember like we would like take it and like pretend to like stick our hands in the mouth, like, oh, I gotta get my bait out, and then the shark would clamp down, but they don't have teeth, so it doesn't hurt. It's just like some pressure on your hands, and you
Yeah.
play it up, and you're like, oh my god, the shark's got, and oh my gosh, like you scare some little kids, and just like, oh gosh, good times, good times.
So like my only shark experience is the first time I went down to Florida. I almost caught a, oh, what are they called? They're just, they're bonnethead sharks. So they're like
Okay.
just a small species of like hammerhead,
Mhm.
and it was like probably about 24 inches, and it like circled my shrimp and then came in and grabbed it. And I gave it a sec, and then I like tried to rip its face off and just popped the line, and the line floated back towards me. It was kind of a heartbreaker.
Dang. Well, you'll get. I'm sure you'll find some. I mean, if you ever come out to New York, you can come on out. I'll try and put you on some shark. I probably won't, but I can try and put you on some sharks. But yeah, it's a definitely. I I feel kind of bad hooking a shark, because they're very smart. They're not like a normal fish. Like a normal
Hmm.
fish, that they're like eat, sleep, spawn, and they don't really sleep, so it's just like eat, spawn. But like sharks, I feel like are very like for what they are, they're very developed in their mind and stuff. Like comparatively to other fish, like they're a lot more developed and smart. And I feel like they're a lot more person-like, I guess we'll say, a lot closer to like what a person would be considered intelligent. Um, and so like I feel kind of bad hooking them, especially, and they're really cool animals. They're really important to the ecosystem. Where like it's not like a fish where they'll spawn again and make 50,000 more next year. Like a shark is pretty small in their numbers of reproduction. So you try not to mess with them as much as possible. But really really cool fish. Always interesting when you catch one.
Yeah, I see like there's like a couple different like opinions about like sharks as far as like just snipping your wire leader and leaving the hook in and it'll rust out, but it's like will it rust out though? You're using this huge stainless steel circle hook like.
It depend. It takes a lot longer than people think is the thing. And it also a lot of it is the barb that you're using. Like if you're using a barbless hook, then that'll slide out. It'll rust out and slide out no problem. But like a barbed hook with rust on it, like that barb is just gonna get bigger. It's just gonna sit in the fish's face a little bit easy, like harder, and it'll come out eventually, but it will take a lot longer. And it'll also it could lead to infection, which is not a good thing for a fish. So like that's a whole debate. Like I don't know. I I understand that our pastime is injuring another living being, but that is a crutch that you're willing to bear, right?
Hmm.
You're giving out free lip piercings. That's what I always tell them. Like if someone offered you a free lip piercing, you'd probably take it too.
Um, let's backtrack a little bit. You mentioned like raising fish as a side hustle and breeding fish. Like what did that look like?
So yeah, that was an entirely different thing. That was like back when second and third year of college. I got it really into aquariums and like keeping fish, and I thought that I could make it big by like starting a fish farm of like exotic fish species and breeding them and making money. And then I looked into it more and more, and I was like, this is not really monetarily good or accessible or anything. But while I was living with a bunch of other people and we were splitting water and electricity and everything, and it was more feasible for me to do it, I had, I think at the max, I had 16 tanks of guppies, like show class guppies that I
Oh,
bought from New
jeez.
Mexico or Arizona or something, and he flew them. They were flown overnight from New Mexico or Arizona to Colorado, and then like I had to drive from Fort Collins in northern Colorado an hour and a half south to the Denver International Airport at 1 in the morning to pick up this box of guppies and then drive them all the way back. And so I went and got, it was a whole thing. Like they didn't want me in the airport. I like pulled up and I was like, I'm supposed to be picking up a package, and they're like, go to FedEx. Essentially, I was like, yeah, no, but I'm supposed to be here, and I showed them like the receipt and all the information, and they had to go like call somebody, and like a bunch of police officers or like officials from the airport came over, and they were like talking with me for a while. It was a whole thing. But long story short, I got and then started breeding these show class guppies, and it got to the point where I couldn't sell as many as I was making and breeding. And I just kind of kept buying tanks to put more guppies in. And it got to the point where there was just like a wall of tanks in my room, essentially. And then there were like 5 or 6 tanks in the living room, and a couple of tanks in the kitchen, and a tank in the bathroom. It was nuts. It was not good. And so I had to slowly downsize that. A lot of them I sold off to just like people who were like using them to feed their larger fish. Some people like keep Oscars or peacock bass or stuff like things like that, and they'll like use like guppies and mollies and stuff because they reproduce really fast. So they just people would buy them for that, or just like their tanks and whatnot. But there's only so many people who want to buy guppies, and when you're selling them for like $4 a guppy, then they're like, I can go to Petco and get 4 for $4. Like I'm not gonna do that. So it just like it was cool for a little bit. It just didn't really make sense long term. But it was a really fun, interesting time of my life. I was driving around a lot. I drove from Wyoming to like southern Colorado and back, like all the way across. I drove through the mountains a couple of times to drop off guppies, and it was a whole thing. Um, but yeah, I again would not do it again. It
Hmm.
was it was definitely one of those things where like I didn't have anything better to do, and I was like, well, this is kind of like an interesting side hustle that I'll try for a little bit. But uh, to anyone out there who wants to raise guppies and try and sell them for way too much money, don't. Just don't. Just save yourself the money. Go take up knitting or something, or golf, or I don't know. Just don't do the guppies. It doesn't work. uh, yeah.
Oh, it's dude, that's kind of wild. I feel like everybody goes through like a, it's like, oh, I can do like this side hustle thing, and like I can like this is how I'm gonna make my mark, and like it's just like a ton more work than like what you realize at the time.
Yeah, they say like 90% of businesses fail in the first year, and I get it. I really
Hmm.
understand. Like it's just like just doing that and just like doing it as like for fun. Like I was like this is not like I couldn't even imagine like trying to raise a family or like sustain your living off of doing that. Like no way. No chance. You would need like multi millions of dollars to be comfortable starting a company, I think. And I just yeah, don't don't do it. Speaking of side hustles, though, YouTube. We should probably talk about the YouTube channels plans. You got a YouTube channel. I got a YouTube channel. What have you got going on this year for the channel? You got anything fun you got planned?
So one of the things that I got planned, I got a couple cool things in the works here. Let me pop this out real quick. This
Ooh,
is this is the next thing that I
oh
have going
yeah,
on. This is the BFS setup.
oh
So
yeah.
this is a the reel is a AliExpress Tersoya Noya
Say that.
Genius. I
Jesus
don't,
Christ.
dude, I don't even. Yeah, but like apparently like the BFS guys are like, if you want to get a reel, Like this is the one to get. This one's in a I think a 8:1 gear ratio. So for like fishing like streams and whatever, it's gonna be the ticket with moving water. And I did get to test this out. Caught a couple sunfish. I got this Bill Lewis
Oh
gnat
yeah,
tied
the
on.
little, yeah,
Yeah, just like a little micro square bill.
nice, yeah.
And then wind grips, and then the rod's a 6 foot ultralight, so it can throw 1/32 to 1/4 ounce lures.
Damn.
But
Okay, that's a
like,
good range for BFS stuff, though.
yeah, and like once you get into BFS, they start doing grams, so I gotta like touch up on like how much grams things are.
That's a whole conversion. You get you real right in math and stuff, though.
Dude, and I'm awful at math. Like I'm just gonna like plug it into Google at this point.
That's
But
probably close.
that's really cool though, and like it's mod fast, so I think it'll like do a lot of things well. Um,
Nice. What kind of line are you running on that?
so right now I just like threw on what I've been using, which is 6 pound P line.
Okay.
Maybe I'll downsize to 4, or like some companies make 5 pound test, but I've just been really comfortable with the 6 pound line for my ultralight fishing, especially last year. Like, there's some like pretty healthy trout in my area
Mhm.
to where I'm gonna feel a little more comfortable running 6 pound versus 4 pound line.
Yeah.
Cause
Yeah.
like,
Have you? Sorry, what's up?
yeah, cause like I just caught a trout on a depths 115 not too long ago, so there's definitely like those class of trout out here that'll eat that. My boss at work is like this, I would say, world class fly fisherman. He did guiding in Alaska for a living for a while. So when he's like I had about a 24-inch brown trout like take my fly the other day, and he's like, and I missed it. Like there's definitely those fish out here. There's huge fish out here.
Yeah, so you definitely want to be prepared. I've been seeing a lot of guys. Not that I know anything about BFS, but I've been seeing a lot of guys going braid to fluoro leader or braid to mono leader, which obviously people do for a lot of finesse applications. Is that something that you've thought about doing? Maybe like a 6 pound braid or an 8 pound braid to a 6 pound leader.
That's
Um,
Yeah, that's definitely something I could do. With one thing that like the BFS guys are saying is that with running braid, if you get a snag, pulling your snag out is like a lot different because you have like such a small spool and like a light spool that braid can like just bend your spool. So
gotcha.
you
Okay,
gotta be
that
like a
makes
little careful with that.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering why you didn't go with the braid to the, because especially if you're fishing for like bigger, heavier class fish, like I feel like that braid will stand up a little bit better. And you
Hmm.
get a little bit longer cast, keep a little bit more line on the spool as well. But yeah, that totally makes sense with the whole you don't want to bend the spool.
No, exactly. And like I don't remember who said it, but I seen it somewhere where somebody was like, every swim bait guy has like it has it in them to throw micro lures.
Oh, absolutely. But if you ever talk to a swim bait guy and tell them, "Oh yeah, I'm throwing something that's an inch and a half long," they will hate you.
Okay, but dude, like, okay, so like this like Bill Lewis gnat, like this thing is cool. Like it's a tiny lure. It's okay. Like it's not a throwback wake walker. You got like a huge size difference there, but throwing like tiny little lures, that's fucking cool.
Yeah, it's a great time. It's especially like if you're just, I think a lot of people these days, especially, are so interested with catching the biggest fish for Instagram clout or YouTube clout or what have you. Like, I think that people are very interested in like only the bigs. But if you're just getting out there to have a good time, like you and me, like if you just want to go out and catch some fish and just enjoy nature and enjoy your time out on the water, like there's no better way to do it than just get something small, get something finessey, like feel the fish fight and throw some small bait that you're gonna get bit on, and just like go out and have fun. Just go catch them.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you're not gonna get like other people interested in like fishing if you're like, oh, we're throwing big baits all day, that's all we're throwing.
Yeah.
And like I'll throw like swim baits. This will be like my second year throwing them, and it's a lot of fun. But like when my dad comes out, all my dad ever throws is a beetle spin, and he
Yeah.
and he crushes fish on a beetle spin. Like I'm not gonna be like, hey, dad, the only thing you're throwing today is this 9 inch 6 cent straw. Like we ain't fishing anything else.
Like, and that's the thing that I love about fishing is it's so individualistic. Because if you are into that, if you're like one of those guys like Jeffrey the King or like Phoenix Pickner or like any of these guys who go out and specifically only throw big baits 95, 97, 100% of the time, like you can do that if that's what you want to do and just go target those giants. Like you can do that. But if you want to go out and just have fun and just hang out and do your thing, like you can do that too. And it's like it's great that fishing is so encompassing that you don't have to, necessarily, oh, because I'm fishing this way, you have to fish this way, and vice versa. Like there's no right or wrong. It's just how you want to enjoy it. As long as you're enjoying it, I think is the important part.
Yeah, and like so like Marshall the homeless fisherman, I would say he's primarily known as a swim bait guy, but if you like follow him on Instagram or whatever, he's throwing a lot of other things too, like down in Florida.
Those ton.
Yeah, he like a lot of those G crack stuff, mega bass
Yeah, well, I think he
stuff.
works with G Crack, so that makes sense for sure. But like the bellow stick, the bellows gill, like he throws like the little the DRT, the little weird spindly looking dude. I don't know what they call that, but
Oh
yeah,
yeah, and like one of the things that he threw was like G crack to have like the new gilling,
yeah,
and the gilling 75, and so like it's a smaller, like I feel like it's kind of like a black dog G2 shell cracker where it's like could be like a wake and crank.
yeah. It's a similar size to that as well. Yeah,
But dude, so like with like Marshall throwing like the bellows gill, like I've wanted to try these for a long time. And are you familiar with like uh Taku Itu and like him putting his like soft plastics and like that juice stuff?
yeah, oh yeah.
You open these up, and I don't know what it is, but like as a fisherman, you gotta like smell your soft plastics.
They reek.
These are fishy. These have something going on in them, but I'm super excited for these.
Yeah, they smell like low tide, but I bet they work, dude. I'm freaking. I gotta get my hands on some of those. I want to try the bellow stick out too. That looks really good. I'm a sucker. I like the I'm a big fan of the Lake Fork ring fry.
Hmm.
That little like 4.5 inch bait, and then also their hyper sticks as well. Like, but any of those like Senko style baits that have like a lot of ridges and stuff where they like hold the water and they kind of undulate, love that stuff. So like to see them come out with something where it's like that all the way down the body, I gotta get my hands on some at some point.
Hmm.
Those things look sweet.
Yeah, and like with these, so like one of my favorite like creature baits or like beaver style baits is missile baits D bomb, and I'm like this is like looking at these for a long time. Like I've wanted them for quite a while, and it's like finally getting my hands on some. I was like pretty excited about that. Like I feel like that's gonna be I feel like that's gonna work really well, especially there's a lot of lakes around me where like there's trout and bluegill, so like there's the opportunity to throw swim baits, but then there's the opportunity to throw stuff like that as well, like
Mm.
more bluegill kind of profile stuff.
Well, you can even like, do you? I don't know if you throw a lot of bluegill profile swim baits. I know you just recently picked up the Wake Walker, but past that, like, if you had a lot of experience throwing those bluegill style baits, because they are killers. I don't know if you've had a chance to like really experiment with them at all, but
Not a ton. Like I don't have like a lot of bluegill profile like soft baits. As far as like other stuff, I have this Wake Walker. On the more finessey swim bait side, I have
right.
a Gracely finesse gill. This this paint job's like a little weird to me.
It's interesting. It
It
looks almost
is.
like a crappie.
It gives off crappie vibes, but I have this. I think this is really gonna smash. But then I threw around a Gantarelle quite a bit last year and caught a few on that, like really small bass too on a Gantarelle. Like it was
It's
wild.
surprising, yeah. There's a lot of those little bass. They like those multi-jointed baits. I don't know what it is. I think they just like they see something running away from them and they have to have it. You know?
Yeah, it was crazy because I was fishing from the bank and with this other guy, and he was like, "Oh, like he was throwing a jig," and he's like, "Oh, there's no way like these." Because we could see little bass, but we could also see bluegill. And it's like, there's no way a bass is going to eat that. And I had, a 12-inch bass, like, just try to annihilate this thing right at the bank.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, like those little bluegill baits, like they get bit. I'm a big fan of the blue. I've been throwing the bluegill glides a whole bunch. Obviously, I'm a big glide guy. I'm not so much into the wake or the multi jointed baits. Love me a wake bait though. But like a normal like multi jointed like a Gantarelle or like a flea shad or something like that is not something that I have a lot of confidence in. But dude, there are a couple of like sneaky wake baits or glide baits. Here, I'll actually pop a couple out. I got my little glide bait box right here for showing. But I was actually thinking about this one. If you haven't, if I can get it out, if you haven't had a chance yet, and you're looking for like a medium-sized glide bait, bluegill glide bait, that is. These Bait Sanity antidote glides, these little guys, I
Mm-hmm.
think they're about 50 or 60 bucks. They're a little bit on the pricey side, but they make floating ones as well as like extra slow sinks. I would get the floating one though, and you can just twitch these things super slow on the surface of the water. They're almost very similar to like a tiny flash or a canine action where they kind of sit in place really well. And again, like especially the floating ones, like they're great around cover and stuff. And that little guy, that thing gets chewed. That's a good one for sure. If you want to go up in price, obviously there's a lot of really good options as well. I'm a big fan of the 86 Tempest Skill. That's what they call it. That's a really cool one as well. The bull shooters are dope. Obviously, I don't know if you had a chance to fish those at all. They sink a little fast though. I'm not the biggest fan of the bull shooters in terms of the bluegill glides out there, but I would seriously that Bait Sanity one. If you can find one for like a decent price or something, get you one.
Yeah,
They're
I've kind of been looking at the depths, like the bull shooter, and then also like every once in a while I'll see like used like Mike Buka bull gills,
dope.
the bull gill glide come up, and I'm kind of curious about that as well. But like as far as right now, I'm gonna try to stick with like just this stuff that I
Yeah,
have. It's like I've kind of accumulated a lot, and I over the winter not having a chance to fish and being like, oh, I need this, I need this. Um, but like one of the forage species that we have is yellow perch, and so that was kind of like the idea for like when I picked up one of these Spro Chad Shads
yeah.
and like in this yellow perch pattern, and these are super cool. And they got like the rotating hook hangers on them as well.
Mhm. Have you
Um,
thrown anything around at all? Have you tried the action out on it?
I have not. I've just like looked at like videos like was it like swim bait reviews where was that Jason Carroll does that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, just looking at that, but then for my birthday, I also picked up and you haven't seen this yet
Uh
because
oh.
usually I'll send you like new swim baits as I get them because I just like can't wait. I gotta show people.
What'd you get?
I got this fish
Oh no
everything.
way.
Uh,
The TSGs or whatever.
yeah. Or I got this fish everything. Um, this is their pearl bone like blanks, and like the camera's not picking it up very well because it is pearl.
Yeah.
There's a lot of flash to it. But this is just a blank from Fish Everything. This is their what are they? I don't even remember what he calls it. They're the taxi shad.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I thought
Yeah,
that was the Oh no, that's not the one. I thought they had the paperweight, and then they replaced it with something new.
yeah. I think the paperweights. were replaced by these taxi shads.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And but this is not a very big glide bait, because like you compare this, like as far as like a shad, like glide bait, because this is 6 inches. And you compare that like even like profile to the Chad shad, the Spro Chad shad. Like it's not a very big bait at all.
It's super manageable. It's a good size. That should get crushed like small bodies of water, smaller ponds and whatnot.
Kind of what I had in mind for this is so a couple of my friends live on the Missouri River at Lake Oahe, and every once in a while, like the elites go to Lake Oahe to fish for smallmouth,
Mm-hmm.
and Milliken Fishing has some like videos there too, like crushing big smallmouth. So that's kind of the idea, is to like go to the river, go to Lake Oahe, and like fish for smallmouth with this.
That would be sick, dude. That's a good bait for some. I think that and the Chad Shad, the two of those two,
Hmm.
for smallies, good little 1-2 punch right there. Maybe mixing a little bit of mag draft. Oof, oof.
Yeah, and I got some citizens to play around with as well.
I saw that. Yeah, that'll be interesting. The Citizens are a fun bait. I don't have a lot of like experience in soft baits in general, like some big
Mhm.
soft plastics, but dude, like those Citizens, one of the only ones that I have any amount of confidence in. Like there's some good baits for sure.
Oh, for real. But like, kind of going back to this, because there's some like really cool stuff with this that I kind of didn't know about until I bought it. And the guy that makes these, I don't remember his name, but he seems like a cool dude. Uh, so like he has instructions for like how to tune this bait, because you can like make it glide really wide, or you can like make it chop really fast, just depending on how you adjust like uh how you adjust the screw eyes on the hinge, because you pull the pin out, and you can adjust these to make it do anything. You can add body roll to it, like as it glides,
Oh, sick.
and like different stuff like that. And then it has a weighting system, kind of similar to like what Mike Buka has with the Trick Shad, to where you can, when you take off the pin and take these two pieces apart, you can add weight to it or take weight out to adjust your sink rate.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
I saw at the I don't know what show that was. Hang on, I'm gonna plug my laptop in so it doesn't die on me. But I saw whatever show that was when they first unveiled those little taxi sheds. They were talking about like all the different like weighting stuff that you can do. Like you pull the pin out and like you can add some more weights and stuff. But I didn't realize how in depth they went with that. That's friggin' sweet.
dude, and this bait's only $90.
Really, I didn't realize it was
Yeah.
that like affordable.
Yeah, like these PB bone ones, yeah, they're $90. And you could like, if you, it's a resin bait, so like if you look like at it closely, there's like some seams on it,
Yeah,
like
it's some little
with the
imperfection.
pouring. But yeah, for like $90 and you're getting a garage built bait, like dude.
That's great. And the tail on that is a soft plastic tail now. They changed that from the brush tail.
Yeah.
Oh, sick. That's so cool. I like that. I think they're not as durable, the soft plastic tails, but I think they do add a level of realism that you don't get from like a brush tail. And the brush tail's so fucking overdone. Like everybody has a brush tail.
Oh, like a big-eyed brush tail like
Yep.
bait.
Everybody's got one made, and everyone's like, oh, they saw Mike Buka make theirs, and they're like, I can get a paintbrush from Ace Hardware and do this too.
Okay, but like, did you see? I think it was at the Classic, like Kevin from KGB, and then Mike Buka, and then a couple other builders were at the Classic, and then there's that other builder there that had like knocked off a TSG or like a Chad.
Oh no, I hadn't
Like,
seen that.
oh, it was pretty blatant, like, and it was pretty blatantly like, oh, you just put like a Chad in a mold and molded it.
Oh gosh, and they were at the show.
They were at the show, like, and this isn't like a huge company or anything like that. It looks like, but it was like pretty blatant. And Mike Buka, like on Swimbait Universe, he's not super opinionated, but he kind of says it how it is. And
Yeah.
he's like, "We had words with that man," and I can only imagine.
That's a absurd. I've seen a couple of it. I mean, like, there's obviously companies who've done that to like the throwback, the Wake Walker. I've seen a couple of different ones there. The Zimmerbait company. I don't know if you know about them, but the Instigator. I've seen a couple people knock that off already. Like it feels like everybody does it, and it sucks that like it is kind of the way that it goes, I guess. But there is more to a bait than just the way that it's like the profile, you know. So like
Hmm.
just because they necessarily didn't or they knocked off the way the bait looks, but the weighting's different. The swim is probably a bit different. Probably using different materials. The bait's not going to be exactly the same, which is good because you don't want someone to just be able to steal exactly what you're doing and do it the exact same way. But yeah, it's kind of sad seeing like people put all their hard work and stuff and then have like a company. The same thing with Berkeley with them knocking off like the flag with their whatever it was, the Nessie. Which by keep I did buy one of those. I'm planning on doing a review video on it at some point or another, just because I'm curious. But yeah, like they very clearly like it's almost the exact same bait as the flag one, and it's just like it sucks to see it happen in any capacity. But it is kind of funny that the dude he went to the show and was like expecting nothing to happen. Like, well, you just kind of dumb at that point. Like if you're gonna go somewhere where you know that these people are gonna be, and you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna show you exactly what I did, and then expect nothing to happen. Like that's he's bold, he's committed. I'll tell you that much. I wouldn't do it, but that's something.
And I think like, okay, so like the flag, I think that's so like for swim bait guys, I feel like they're either like, oh, soft baits or glide baits, or hard baits,
Yeah.
whatever. I think the flag is kind of like a perfect mixture of that. I've never gotten the opportunity to like fish one, but they look super cool.
They do. They look really interesting. Again, like I've only just picked up the Nessie a couple of weeks ago. I haven't gotten a chance to try it out yet or anything. It's currently, I think, collecting water in the bottom of my kayak, but we're not going to talk about that. Um, but yeah, like I think it's a really interesting idea. The soft plastic glide baits. It's I my only worry is like a glide bait. The thing that makes them as sought after and worth their money is that you can catch hundreds of fish on them.
Mm-hmm.
Like like you don't want to go out and spend $100 on a bait, or like even like the flags and the whatever the Berkeley one is, the Nessie. Like the Nessie's what 25-$30, which isn't super expensive when you're talking about a swim bait, but like you go out fishing somewhere where you're fishing or where I'm fishing where there's toothy critters like pike, muskie, pickerel, even a trout would probably mess up one of those things pretty good. They got some pretty good chompers on them. So like the durability factor is kind of the one thing that kind of throws me off on them. But other than that, like because they're made out of that soft plastic material, they can they have that little bit of extra life like realism to them that you don't get from a hard plastic ABS. So there's definitely pros and cons to it. I again just being somewhere where there are a lot of toothy things that like to tear up expensive baits, like it's not something that I would reach for all the time. But it has its time and place for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, my first swim bait fish, uh, was like a little 20-inch pike. So
Yeah, dude, those pike they're aggressive. I think my first swim bait fish was a Jesus Christ. I want to say a 2.5 pounder on an S waver. I think was
mm-hmm.
the first one that I ever caught. Which might I add, I don't understand why the S Waver is loved as much as it is. I was thinking about it today in the car. I was driving to a fishing spot and I was like, why do people love the S Waver so much? And it's like, I think it boiled down to when it came out, there was no other option. And now that there are other options, they suck. And I'm okay with saying that. River to Sea, if you're watching, the S Waver sucks. I love most of your baits. Whopper Plopper's sick. You make one of the best poppers on the market. The S Waver is dog shit.
Okay, so like, yeah, like my first swim bait fish was on a knockoff S Waver blank that I painted.
Yeah.
And then so like fishing that really hard last year and then like getting into nicer, higher quality like resin or like nicer ABS baits, or even wood baits like I just picked up a Roman made negotiator.
There.
Really excited about that. But like fishing those baits, I'm like, oh, so this is what like a nice glide bait is like.
Yep.
And so I just made a short not too long ago where I'm like, if you want to get into swim bait fishing, honestly, probably your best bet is to like spend the extra money and get something like a Tiny Clash.
Yeah, you said the Tiny Clash in that. I also think the Clash 9. I
Mm-hmm.
know you said that if you don't have like a dedicated swim bait rod, it's kind of a little bit of a hefty bait, which is 100% fair. That being said, though, if you do have a swim bait rod that can handle that bait, I have some unbelievable confidence in the K9, even more than the Tiny Clash. Like the Tiny Clash is great; it has its time and place. But that Clash 9, I think the Tiny Clash, it's a little more twitchy. It's
Mm-hmm.
much more of like it tends to roll a lot more when you work it. You have a higher possibility of like twitching it too hard and blowing it out. Whereas that Clash 9 has a little bit more force behind it, a little bit more girth, and a little more weight. So it just kind of doesn't roll as hard. It doesn't want to kick out as hard. And I feel like it's a little more of a consistent bait. But yeah, both of them, I definitely agree. Like, if you want one bait, and that's the best part about those DRT baits is like you can do it all with them. Like, it's not just like a
Mm-hmm.
one type of bait. Like, you buy a glide bait and it glides. You buy a wake bait and it wakes. Like the tiny clashes, you buy one of each. You buy Ghost if you really want to, and then you go out and you can do everything you want with those baits.
Yeah, like no kidding. And so like when you get a Tiny Clash, I think they're about 2 ounces. They're somewhere around that.
Yeah, they got like one, like two, one, like just under 2 ounces, something like that.
Yeah, versus like a K9 is about 4 ounces. So that was like topping off on like the swim bait rod that I have right now that I built. And I feel like when a lot of people like get into swim bait fishing, they're going to like have a rod that's like 1 to 4 ounces.
Yeah.
And then you look at then you get into it and you're looking at more baits and you're like, oh, a Roman made mother is like 12 ounces. And like it's like how can I get a rod dedicated just to throwing like a mother and stuff like that. But like getting into it, I think yeah, most people are gonna like have a rod that will like throw like 1 to 4 ounces, but you can throw a lot of like that's what I have, and I have a lot of these different baits. Is it gonna do all of these different baits like that well? Probably not, but like I could probably get by for right now without
Oh,
having
absolutely.
to get more setups.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like if you're just starting out with swim bait fishing and you just have one rod to do it, like I think honestly like that the way you're going about it is probably smarter. The way I went about it was the exact wrong way. I bought my first swim bait setup was a Tranks 400 with a 3 to 10 ounce rod,
Oh my
so it
gosh,
was
did you have the big power handle?
a big power handle, baby. It's awesome. It was so. I still. It's a great rod and reel hook combo. It only has the mother on it at this point. Like that's the only thing I use it for. But like Jesus, like because I was like, oh, I need a big rod. I'm throwing big baits, big rod, big reel, big line, big everything. I think I went out and bought like 80 pound P-line braid or something, or like Power Pro or something like that from a Walmart. Was like, this is great. Wasn't great. Not what you want. um, but yeah, dude, like it's definitely I think if you're starting out, the smaller baits are going to be what you're gravitating towards. So if you know, are just getting into it, something that throws 1 to 4 ounce baits, like what you're saying, is probably what you're gonna get into. And yeah, for that, I think the Tiny Clash is probably better. Again, that bait sanity. think it's less than 2 ounces. That's a good one as well. The negotiator is, I think, right around 2 and a little bit ounces, so that'll be
Mm-hmm.
pretty manageable. Maybe right around 3, but not more than 3 ounces for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, regardless, man, like yeah, I'm so friggin' ready to get back into fishing. I don't know if you heard. I think you heard about the poison ivy that I was
Yeah.
dealing with the last couple of weeks. Yeah, dude, and I was watching people like this kid caught a 7.5 pounder at a pond down the road from me, and I'm like,
Jesus,
I
dude.
I know where you're fishing. I'm not gonna go blow up your spot, but I know where you're fishing. Oh man, but I was just like watching that and just like not even being able to use my hands. I was like, this sucks, dude. This really sucks. So just being able to get after it again is such a good feeling.
Were you going out to go fishing while you got this poison ivy, or like how did this
Oh, I was
happen?
at work. I was working is the worst part. So I got workers comp, which is good. But like I was out weed whacking at work, and we were like, my boss was like, oh, we're gonna go weed whack this area that hasn't been touched in about 5 years, and I was like, okay, cool. And then he left and to go do manager stuff because that's what managers do, and left me to my own devices. And somehow I got the worst case of poison ivy that the people at the urgent care had ever seen. So that was good.
Oh, right. And I commented on like one of your videos about it. Like my brother and I, we went out to one of like in my hometown, one of the Bass Lakes, and it's like back in the middle of nowhere. Like you have to have four wheel drive to get there. We hauled our kayak there, and he was wearing shorts. I was wearing full length pants, and he got like some gnarly poison ivy on his calves to the point where like the nurse was like, "Ew, ew." Dude,
Yeah,
that's
dude.
that feels really bad when you have a nurse that is probably seeing some disgusting things on a daily basis. Is like, ew.
Dude, yeah, like to actually gross like a medical professional out is a special kind of nasty. That was about the same reaction that I had. The lady was like, "Oh my gosh, that's gross." She's like, "Oh my god, it's everywhere." I was like,
Dude, that's maybe a little unprofessional.
"Yeah, it wasn't great. It was fine, but yeah." She was like looking at me and she's like, "Oh my god, it's on your face too." I was like, "Yeah, it's on the tips of my ears." She's like, "How did you do that?"
All I
Like,
was weed whacking.
if we whacking, dude, it gets you everywhere. Um, yeah, little silver lining on that though. I got it on my big boy bits downstairs, and I've never looked so average. I'll tell you what. So it has its perks.
Oh, dude, that's fucking awful.
Yeah, it wasn't fun, but yeah, that was the second time in my life I've ever had poison ivy to the point where they were like, "Yeah, this is the worst case we've ever seen." The last time was 2014 during the Ebola outbreak, if you remember that
Mm-hmm.
lovely time, the last pandemic. And I worked at a landscaping place, and I got it while I was at work there, and I had white paint all over my hands from like painting a fence, and then I got the poison ivy underneath it, so it just had like the little white specks on top of like the boils and stuff. And I walked in, and the lady thought that I had Ebola, and she about passed out, and she was like backed out of the room and like refused to see us. We never saw her in the building again after that. And she was like, "Yeah, it's just poison ivy, like it's not Ebola or anything." But she freaked out. Yeah.
One of the
So
other like kind of crappy plants that we have around here, and I haven't seen it for a little bit, but it's my girlfriend and I, when we were going to college, we were fishing this little like creek, and she pulled out like a really nice pike out of it, and we took pictures and whatever, and she's like, "Ow!" Like we released it, she's like, "Ow, ow, ow!" And I'm like, "What?" And there's like stinging nettle,
oh god, you guys
like
have nettles out there.
yeah, like really high, like stinging nettle, and she just got like bumps all
Ooh.
over her arms, and so we went home and we got some tape, and we're like taking the little
Ah,
like stingers out, like just like really fine like hairs of like little
dude.
pokies.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh,
I've
dude, it
only
was
had
bad.
I've had one encounter with stinging nettles, and it was the worst night of my life. I was down in Texas actually, and we were boar hunting at 3 in the morning. Great time otherwise. It was a really really good time. We were out in the back of my friend's F-150 driving around in the middle of nowhere, Texas, on some ranch and blasting country music with AR-15s hanging out of every window and orifice. And
America.
just America to the max. Went through a swamp, saw some deer, shot a couple of boars. It's a great time. But we went through. I was standing. I was like sitting in the bed of the pickup truck with a couple of other guys, and we went underneath this like this thicket, and there were nettles on the side, like either side of the road. And they, when the truck drove through them, I guess it started like flinging the nettles all over us, and everybody in the back of the pickup truck got fucking covered in them. One kid got it in his eye, and he had to go to the hospital.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that was a quick end to the night right there. That was about 4 in the morning, and we were all drunk and ready to go home anyway. So
So like my cousin's uncle, just like this cowboy dude, like his mustache like goes down to here, just
I love it.
filters every drink he's ever drunk through it. But he's like, you see that right there, boy? I'm like, yeah, you got like a callus. So he's like, cactus thorn in there,
Oh my god!
and it's still in there.
From how long ago?
I don't know, but it's like a bump on his thumb. It's all calloused over. He's like, yeah, I could still feel it sometimes.
Ugh, bro. Just cut your finger off at that point. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's like, is it like touching bone? Is it gonna work its way through your finger?
Ugh, that's gross. I can't even imagine. How long would you have to have that in there for you to callus over?
I don't know, dude, but I stuck myself pretty good last summer with the fish hook, and like I haven't done that in like quite a few years, and that's just like an experience I do not want to do again. Have you ever stuck yourself? Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in to that first episode with Trevor, aka Spice Camp Fish. We recorded this episode like way back in April, and I'm so sorry that it's taken this long to get out. I always say life gets crazy, but hey, life has gotten crazy. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. I will have part 2 of this out as soon as I can. Me and Trevor talked for over 2 hours, and we could have talked all night if we didn't have other things to do. But once again, thank you for tuning in to Garage Build Baits, and we will see you for the next episode.